much, guys, for coming. You've got me again today. It's been a while. What was the last thing I did? I can't remember.
I didn't come to it. It was
yeah.
good.
Oh, thank you.
I just can't remember what you should remember.
Well, you're back, so that's evidence. So here today we are going to talk about the Chariot card. I think a lot of people do get confused as to why certain things are corresponded with it. So hopefully today we'll not only clarify the basic things, but also go a bit deeper into the more esoteric meanings behind it. Hopefully you guys will find it interesting. So we'll start off with the astrology. So the Chariot card is to do with Cancer. A lot of people I've seen online get confused, like why is such like a warlike card to do with Cancer? Well, you kind of have to remember that Cancer is the cardinal sign of water. It's like water in action, So you see, I mean, even though it's a watery card, but it's also active at the same time. So it kind of combines that passive and active natures. Because Cancer, what she does is she's the mother of the zodiac. She nurtures people, everyone around her. So it's like water in action, basically, and giving those nurturing feelings. So to get sort of more detailed of that, so Cancer in astrology also rules the fourth house, which governs home. So what kind of condition your home is like? Is it well kept? Is it messy? That type of thing. So say in your birth chart, let's say you have Virgo in the fourth house. That means you're very anal about tidiness in your house, for example. And say if you have Pisces, it means maybe you're quite stuck in your own head and you're quite negligent. And then it also rules conveniences, which is transport. What kind of transport you sort of are used to in life. I mean, it's to do with cars and stuff. And I think that's partly why there's a chariot inside. The chariot's associated with Cancer. It's physical modes of transport compared with like the third house and the ninth house, which is Gemini and Sagittarius. They rule like the distance of travel, which is this like the method of travel. So like say you have Venus in the fourth house, it means like you're used to having like luxurious cars and nice things kind of thing. And lastly, because it's the fourth house, it relates to mother, it's your relationship with your mother. What kind of planets are in there says that in your birth chart. And so, like, say if you, say in like a reading for someone's relationship with their mum, and you get the Chariot card with like the Three of Swords next to it, and you say, well, it's not a very happy relationship, for example, or that kind of thing. So fairly easy, straightforward to follow. Just all motherly things in general. Now we get to the Kabbalah. Now the Kabbalah is the path of Cheth, which means a fence and enclosure. So an enclosure, we kind of get that, the symbol of divine feminine, an enclosure, the womb type of thing. It's the yoni and the Holy Grail. The path of Cheth is between Bina and Geburah, which is the divine feminine inspiring the actions of man. In a sense that you can say it's literally you being inspired by whatever you receive through intuition, and it's driving your actions in a way. And so that's why it's both a masculine and a feminine card. It's like you're having that intuition, and you go out and do stuff with it. And that's why this is such a powerful card. It is one of the three cards which symbolize man's connection with the divine. The other two being the Hierophant and the Priestess. And now that I mentioned the Priestess, Cancer is ruled by the moon, and the Priestess is the moon. So you see that there's that kind of intrinsic link between the Chariot and the Priestess. Very. Like you think the Priestess is intuition itself, then the chariot is kind of how that affects us if it's correctly used. I know. So what does that mean in practice? Well, it's a symbol of how to become enlightened, basically. Yeah, just grab a seat. Where was that? Yes, it's a symbol of enlightenment because of that. It's, you know, again, one of those cards that connect you with the divine, more specifically your actions. Do you have a question, Ben?
No.
No? Okay.
Connections. Great.
Yeah. Now, I think I have to explain what really enlightenment is in the system, because I guess most of you know I work with the Thoth Tarot and Crowley stuff. So one of the advantages of his system is he defines spirituality very concretely. It's really easy to understand. And enlightenment, well, there's two stages to the path of initiation, or the spiritual path, really. So the first is to get to know your true self compared to the desires you sort of brought up with, you know, all the things that we are raised and people inject into us by life, you know. Instead, spirituality is more about drawing what's inside you out into the world. You know, so you're trying to reverse that process. I mean, usually in life, you know, like for example, we get bombarded by advertisements all the time. I remember when I was on the tube, there was so many like Nokia, Lumia, you know, adverts from Wall Street on the escalator up. You know, it's it's ridding ourselves of that influence. So again, there's two stages. One is firstly knowing what your true self is, which in itself is a really long process, arguably. And then the second thing is to get rid of all things that are not essential to your being, so that all that's left is that divine part of you, that divine core. I personally question why the second part was important for a while in my own studies. Like, if you know your true self, then why do you have to, you know, be so? Because what enlightenment when it also happens is that you transcend obviously normal ways of thinking. So if you think about how our brain, our ego is, our sense of self, we are ruled by our emotions and our thoughts. Now, what's problematic is that those things change all the time. So really, if you really want a really definite sense of self-identity, it's problematic to base your identity on those things. I mean, if you think about it, you know, people base their self-identity on, like, say, you know, like if they're into politics, I'm a liberal or I'm a conservative, or if they're really into music, I'm into jazz. Like, you know, these are really kind of arbitrary things, and they're quite flimsy, really. I mean, our tastes change, our ideologies change. So, yeah, again, trying to say I am this or that at any given moment is just not a useful way of living life, really. You know, because it's just so whimsical. So if you do that, like most people, we flip from one thing to the other without any sort of discipline to go for that one thing that we want in life. So knowing who you really are gives you that kind of purpose. So again, it's like, you know, our actions are driven by intuition, by understanding of who we are, which again relates to the Chariot card. You know, so the card itself is the symbol of what spirituality kind of means. It's a symbol of the great work achieved, what it kind of looks like. Now, I'm going to I have more to say, but I'm going to go through the list and then get back onto that point. So, I mean, the enlightened being, once you've transcended, you know, logic and morality, really, dualistic thinking, you reconcile all opposites. right? And that's where it comes into play of the I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Taoist thinking of action via non-action. You know, what that really means is that your conscious self is not the thing that's doing stuff. It's the more subconscious, intuitive side that's propelling you. So your ego, quote unquote, is not the thing that acts, but it's the internal thing that drives you out. You know, so like Western mind have kind of separated the two for easier understanding. So again, this relates to Cancer being the cardinal sign of water. It's water, it's passive, but it's acting, you know.
Does it relate to Cancer? I didn't know. Chariot, yeah?
Yeah. Chariot, Cancer. Sorry, I missed the first part of the talk.
Sorry.
That's fine. Just gonna have a cup of mint tea with my coffee. Yeah. Now, again, why is enlightenment important? I personally just felt, oh, you only need to know who you really are. You don't really need that, you know, or go the extra step. So I never really understood it. But then, you know, if you know who you are, then surely you can just go do it then. Well, it's not so easy because until you have transcended dualistic thinking, which is thinking in terms of, you know, right or wrong, good and evil, good and bad, generally. If you don't get out of the habit of thinking in that way, you'll criticize and judge everything, especially yourself. I mean, there are always things that you don't like about yourself, and that includes your true self. You might not like what you find, you know, that divine spark, like, because I think we especially have this idea of the divine being this, like, especially really fluffy-duffy New Age people. They're like, oh, no, so good, and spread the love and peace, and, you know, the divine's not all that. You know, it's the union of all opposites. It's peace and war. It's, you know, it's everything. And again, that also relates to people in the sense that we all have every opposite inside us, but our tendency is that we prefer one side. You know, like, for example, the masculine and feminine, very clearly, you know, that's entrenched in our culture. You know, so it's like, well, okay, you're used to people saying, oh, you're such a nice person, you're so great, and then this annoying piece of shit annoys you, and then you lash out, and then you're like scared, like, oh, what happened? I'm not normally an aggressive person. Like, oh, you know, and yeah, you again, if you haven't achieved enlightenment, you're likely to criticize and judge yourself, which causes a lot of neurological, like, problems like depression and all that stuff. You know, and what was another point? For a drink. I shouldn't lie.
So do you think the Chariot and the devil could coincide?
The Chariot is kind of, well, the devil is yes. If you think about the devil, because the devil is Capricorn, so it's opposite to, so the Capricorn is kind of the masculine counterpart of Cancer in a way, because in the Thoth, especially, in the devil card, you see a big giant penis in the background. You know, it is the way it's described. You know, the devil is loving all things without discrimination. You know, and especially how I see it is that the Chariot is more about the internal you, where you've reconciled all opposites, whilst the devil is more like how you interact with the external when you've done that kind of thing. So this is kind of like you loving yourself, you've mastered yourself. The devil is like, okay, now that you've mastered yourself, you can love everything else in the environment, kind of thing. Yeah, and I mean, when you're in dualistic thinking, there's always that trap where, how many of you are familiar with Jungian psychology? Pretty much all of you? No? Well, essentially that everything we perceive is simply a projection of ourselves onto other things, right? And so the things we don't like about ourselves, we tend to project it on other people. Like say, for example, if you're homophobic, you would target your hatred against that group of people, and so again, like people think of morality as always a good thing, and there is a massive dark side of morality, and all spirituality is about transcending it and no longer thinking in that way. If you even think about it in the Christian Bible, the original sin of man is when we ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The tree of knowledge of good and evil is morality. It's when we ate that we lost that contact with the divine. So we have to undo that damage, basically, where we're no longer rejecting nature or parts of nature that we don't like. So that's why, if you think of the Kabbalistic way of symbolizing this, is that the fall of man is the birth of the child from the divine mum, and then the chariot, in a way, is sort of crawling back inside the womb, back into the Garden of Eden, kind of thing. And I find that's an interesting way of looking at things. I don't know, and just to go on about this, like, maybe too much so, most people go through life feeling they're broken, like they feel this always inadequate. I'm too old, I'm too fat, I'm too meh, and well, it's okay to feel those things. Again, it's that quality of criticizing and judging things, because if you think about the mind as a sword, it's cutting things, separation, it's hurting, So that's why you're trying to transcend that into the wand, which is just creative and no longer, it's something that unites things rather than divides things. Back on that point, it's like we all tend to we aspire to be, using my metaphor, we all aspire to be flawless diamonds, where most of us, especially marketing is so horrible for doing that. Especially at women, you won't look great unless you have this skin cream, anti-wrinkle cream or whatever,
Why especially for women?
I think that either they feel it more, or whatever. Especially it does for men too. Like, you have to be the man. You have to be tough. Like, obviously it's both. But I think it is more pronounced in a way. Or women are more likely to say it more.
Women are more receptive.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's a bit of a...
There is a study, because I did a bit of marketing in my degree. It's like men are better at shrugging off these things compared to women.
and our culture is inherently misogynist.
Yeah, even women are misogynistic. That's the
Not
second
as
one.
bad as some others.
Yes.
Sorry, where was I? We all programmed to want to be perfectionistic, to be flawless diamonds. But then most of us, are bricks or normal rocks. But we criticize ourselves for not being perfect. When you're enlightened, you finally understand that you're not flawed. You're just not that thing. Well, you're human. It's like just because you're a brick and not a diamond doesn't mean you're broken. It's the analogy I like to make. And so a whole point of this is to accept whatever you are, even if you don't necessarily like it. I've gone through this. So if we finally go back to the card and into the symbols, we have, I think the most important one is actually the sphinxes or the horses or whatever animals that draw the chariot. They represent the different parts of ourselves. So in the Thoth you have the 4 sphinxes, which is the 4 elements. So the 4 elements of our own being. So we have now that we've got them all in tandem to march in a certain direction, we have that momentum in life, basically. So again, the key to things happening in life is self-mastery. It might be more obvious to some than others. I think in the Rider-Waite you have the black and white sphinxes, which is just masculine and feminine, sides of you. The other thing to note is that the charioteer, I think it applies in all decks, but the charioteer is usually, he's sitting on the chariot, but he's not actually driving it. He's not actually controlling the horses. So again, this ties into the principle of action by non-action. It's like you've mastered those elements, and then you can just let go and.
Okay, so let go of the flow.
Yeah, I like to think of this in terms of mastery. If you think of it when you master any art, think about how an amateur chef, when you're chopping vegetables, they're really careful not to cut themselves, But then, especially people if you go to Chinatown a lot, you see these butchers with these massive cleavers just doing this, and with no fear of cutting themselves. I think when you get good, you can just leave things very automatic, and you don't really have to think about things. Again, that element of mastery, allowing things to work themselves. It's like when you're good at chopping vegetables, your muscles know where to cut, and you don't have to really mind where your fingers are, sort of thing.
So it's like sort of being in a vortex, yeah? And you can take all the benefits out of that.
Well, one minor difference of the charioteer compared to most other decks is in the Thoth he's armoured. He's armoured because he's transcended duality, so it's no longer any self-identity the way we conceive it. So he's armoured in the sense that he has no more face. It's not the case in other decks, but something to point out. I think in the Rider-Waite, there's a starry canopy above the charioteer. That's a symbol of the Divine Mum, the Divine Mother. I prefer saying mum than mother, it sounds more personal. Because again, it's Divine Mother inspiring our actions. So again, it's still arching over us in the Rider-Waite. In the Thoth, it's just it's a blue, thing around.
It's called abracadabra or something.
Abracadabra is the Thelemic word of the Aeon. So.
Where is that?
Oh, in the Thoth.
It's there. It's that one.
Well, if we're going to go into the symbol of that, it's a symbol of the rosy. It's in word form the symbol of the rosy cross, the way I interpret it, because it has 5 consonants and 6 vowels, or the other way around. So it has the 5 and the 6 together. So it's the union of God and man. So that word is like that expression in word form. That's why, especially for a thelemic practice, this is the symbol for attainment, basically. And again, this whole idea of union of opposites. If any of you've read anything Crowley-esque, it's very macho. Lord of the Aeon, it's about fire and passion. And then here is really the symbol of attainment, which is a feminine card. Again, there's again the playing of opposites thing. The reason why spirituality is inherently masculine is because it's about being active. Like even when you're passive, you're in a state to do something. Your passive is just you're passive, but then the divine spark in you is creating change in the world. So that's why inherently spirituality is active. It's being the person who can create the change you're meant to do, have the impact you're meant to do in the world, essentially. Yeah. So, and then you have the Holy Grail. Now, the Holy Grail is an interesting one because in terms of symbols, you're meant to sacrifice your life's blood into the Holy Grail, which is the Divine Mother. It's like you're giving of yourself into it. And once you do, you will attain. It's the idea that in order to...
Where's the Holy Grail?
It's the big...
On the carolling, yeah? Oh, okay.
Yeah. The Holy Grail. First of all, if you look at sort of Arthurian legends, that's like the goal these knights try to attain. This holy feminine that these lustful knights are trying to come and go after, kind of thing, with their lances held up high. Lots of euphemisms in medieval stories. What else? What's my point with that? Shouts out sometimes. Yeah.
Why is the Grail sideways? Because traditionally, a lot of cups are sort of
I think
recognition are portrayed.
I think it's
also
just to show what's inside it, the colours.
What is inside it?
The blood of saints. So it's like all the enlightened people, they have sacrificed of themselves into that cup to attain it, and then to become one with the divine. It's like how Jesus, with the Last Supper, I give of my bread, this is my body. I give of my blood, this wine, this is my blood, kind of thing. You're giving up who you are, or not necessarily who you are, but what your conceptions of you is. Again, I think people get hung up on the idea of destroying your ego. There is no way to exist without an ego. Point one. The thing is, what it really is the correct attitude you must take in order to attain, which is you have to be willing to not be so bound up by who you think you are. You have to continually challenge yourself and say, is this really who I am? Is this coming from true center, true self? Or is this something that someone else put in my head and it's affecting me and I'm confusing myself to do something else? So that's the destruction of ego, and it also means not being no longer being a slave of your upbringing. Because we especially if you believe in reincarnation, as we live, we build up karma. We build up karma. I interpret it as kind of like spiritual scars in life, like things happen to you and you bear the mark for until you resolve it, sort of thing, until it's healed. Again, so it's resolving those things. And if you look at the rituals where these adepts do to finally unite with the divine, is they have this massive banishing ritual. So all four elements, I get rid of all these things that aren't of me, and then what's left is what's left is the real me. So any other questions on the symbols? Actually, I think I've covered the important ones. No? Okay. So having understood all that, we now know, okay, this is why in Little White Books, people say the Chariot card is triumph and success, because in this in a spiritual sense, it's the attainment of the whole goal of spirituality. So generalizing that, it becomes success in general, and it also pertains to self-mastery, but not self-mastery in the sense of taking control, but actually relinquishing control in order to be a master. So in a way, it's also, you can see as go with the flow and let life happen. That's it's kind of the best way to say it, but it's not quite accurate. What you're really doing is like going with your own inspirations. So because it is, as I said, it's an active card, even though it's watery. So you might not be making the waves, but you're still moving. It's like you're still riding them, even if you're not getting a paddle and making your own, or getting a motorboat. So, hopefully no questions so far. Okay. I want to finish off on this note, which is a bit more a discussion. Is enlightenment an uncontested good? I think there's a tendency in the community to see, oh, it's so great to be enlightened, to be Buddha. I have a problem with that personally, because if you think about enlightenment, you've reconciled all opposites. I've read up on some biographies, and they try to explain what it's like. So you reconcile all opposites, which includes you cease to distinguish between yourself and other people. You see yourself as all parts of a whole, and now that's fucking dangerous. Because if you think about how people like Gandhi and Jesus and they're so all loving, they're willing to give themselves to other people. Well, people take advantage of that.
Yeah, but if you are enlightened being, you probably have got so much love inside you that you wouldn't actually care.
Yeah, that's the thing. For me, that is scary as shit. You get taken advantage of, and you won't care. And it's like, from some point of view, it's not really dumb.
But they wouldn't probably feel that way even.
They don't feel that way. But just looking at it from an outsider, it's just like, is this really something I want to get into? Too much, yeah, And to be fair, enlightenment is, as you said, it's you've experienced it, but you stay grounded. That's why grounding is so important.
But these qualities don't preclude the capacity for righteous anger.
They don't, but no anger is righteous. But
indignation. Indignation.
Maybe just enlightenment is for few people who actually are able to help other people through the amount of love and understanding they have.
That's true, but then would you really want to be that person? Because like for me, the story of Jesus is so touching for me in ways that's not quite the same as other people, because you're so loving and giving, and these people crucify you on the cross. Well, fuck that. If I were him, I'd be like, you know what? I'm going to let you all rot in eternal damnation. Is it really worth helping people who are like that?
It's what you do with the enlightenment.
Yeah.
That was his
way of doing things, but it's like, but.
It was written in scripture, but
yeah. You know that on average, our heart chakra, anahata chakra, is only open 0.4%.
Yeah,
that's all.
That's the thing.
And Jesus and Mother Teresa, they've got 100%. So how can we even compare to that?
But
it's just the story highlights it, definitely.
But she did something else with her enlightenment, rather than dedicating, sacrificing her life. She did sacrifice it in a way, as an offering of using that life to make a difference. That was her way of dealing with it.
If you can do that without people doing what they did to Jesus, then great,
absolutely.
But that's.
I don't understand. I don't usually say that, but something about what you said really does not make sense to me. You talked about something about the problem being with enlightenment is being taken advantage of. Yeah.
By people who are unenlightened, basically, which is everyone else.
How can you be taken advantage of if you're unenlightened? I don't understand that.
Yeah,
well, if you think of, I'm trying to explain this in terms of dualistic thinking, obviously, but from an unenlightened person's perspective, being enlightened has its problems.
Yeah,
obviously,
absolutely.
The enlightened person won't see that.
That's absolutely fine.
No, but it's like again, for me, I really question the people who are so into becoming enlightened. It's like, there are dangers to it. You realize, right? It's not.
Yeah, but if there is a fear, you will never get that. If you're already introducing a fear, you're introducing fear in this conversation. That's not.
It is fear, fair enough. But okay, now.
So fear is so far away from being enlightened.
Okay. This is the example that I gave, right? So one of the people who teaches us stuff, who's also a psychologist, is like, okay, it's important to be enlightened so that you're no longer projecting your aggression onto other people, right? You know that whatever you're angry with, you're actually angry with yourself in some way, and so you're not targeting other people. Well, that's fine, yes, that's true, but that doesn't stop other people from doing that to you, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It helps you understand where they're coming from and maybe deal with it better.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can...
Yeah, but at the same, it doesn't...
But yeah, it won't stop that.
I mean, it doesn't necessarily cope with it better because you potentially die and not care.
No, you wouldn't let them do it to you.
Well, I mean, if you're balanced enough not to be 100% heart chakra, which I think most people probably are.
Yeah, but if you love yourself, you wouldn't let someone do that to you.
Well, no, but see, here's the thing. If you're enlightened, you cease distinguishing between the other person and you. So when you give of yourself to the other person, you're, again, you'd be more than happy to give yourself fully, type of thing. Again, it's what you do with it, but again, it's quite...
The choice is there.
The choice is...
Come up with a lot of advice people who've used it in a
well, yeah, like
to your ripe old age.
Well, like what's his face, Muhammad. I'm pretty sure he was enlightened, but he still had wars to create a Muslim state and all that stuff.
Or those who are, maybe those who are enlightened and then use it to not do such a great thing. They've got all the answers.
Well, the thing is, again, when you think of great and bad, it's like I don't know. I mean, they obviously think differently than we do because we, like for example, they might see it probably best to create a state where they can, practice that religion freely, even if it means having to commit genocide to do it. Some might think that way, but one way I've kind of seen as a way to reconcile it is, again, Crowley's life, because he lived during the First and Second World Wars. He did quite a bit for the war effort for the British side, because he was working for an American newspaper, and he wrote a lot of propaganda for the Allies. And he was saying, again, it marks the point, yes, you're enlightened, you cease distinguishing between you and someone else, but he was still British, so you still fight for the Brits, So and again, you still have the ego if you're just not dominated by it. Point one. Point two is that even when he was doing his job, his own way of fighting the Nazis, he really criticized people who hated on them. And he was saying that yes, you can commit violence on people simply because life is competitive. There's no way not to have conflict, but you do it without any hatred in your heart. The quote in the Book of the Law is, "As brothers fight ye." You fight almost as if you're dealing out tough love in a way. But then that is something I don't think many people can reconcile with, because you love someone, you're still gonna beat the crap out of them. Maybe some people can do that, other people can't. But
if you have in the body, if you have an illness in the body. Oh
yeah, I guess then you probably.
How are you gonna treat the? Yeah. You could amputate. Well, quite traumatic, maybe if you bring that.
If it is that.
If you overreact, you get fatal, cancer. Is that right? Yeah. Well, no, wait. No. What's it? The body overreacts to. When some of the illnesses are when the body overreacts to a pathogen or a problem. Anaphylaxis, for example. So the problem there is actually it's it's treating the problem with too much aggression. So yeah, fighting as with love is like you do what is necessary, you get the job done to preserve whatever it is you're trying to preserve.
Yeah.
But always the aim there is, in the case of a body organism, there's a presupposition that the aim of the organism is whatever the organism's aims are. So in this thing, when you talk about dividing the self, unifying self and other kind of thing, then you've already got. It doesn't actually say what your what you've acknowledged as your divine goal is at that point. So it doesn't really mean that you're going to let other people walk all over you, but it does mean that how you interact with them will be different.
Yeah.
You still have to work out what you're trying to do.
I think that's a good analogy, that dealing with a pathogen kind of thing. It's in you, and you might have, you might cauterize a bit of you.
Yeah. If you don't have the answers, then maybe you would chop off the problem and hope that was sufficient. And it's like, what are you going to do? So you've got to make a choice.
Okay, so I think that's all from me. I'm going to give my throat a rest.
Can I
anything else? Yeah?
Yeah, I did a reading, a friend of mine. It was relationship reading. And Chariot came out as an outcome card. And not sure if I interpreted right. What would you say about that?
If I were just to look at that card alone, just say it's probably a very successful relationship. One that will help you be your true self in a way. It's you can argue. Trying to word this right, but it's almost as if the relationship is helping you complete yourself, kind of thing. Although it's not that person completing you, it's facilitating the becoming whole process. Anything else?
Can I ask a question? Yeah. We're talking about this path from 5 to 3 as the great work.
Yeah.
Is that right? What are the path from 6 to 1 and 4 to 2?
What do you mean? What are them?
Well, I mean, if we're talking
so
about
they all are. Well, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Are they all?
So it's different ways. So I think it's just in the thelemic context, the Chariot card is the definite one, because the Chariot card in a magical context, it pertains to mysticism. So meditating and quieting your mind, kind of thing. So those kinds of practices. So if you compare that with like the Hierophant, which is like religious dogma, so that's the other way of transcending into the divine, connecting with the divine. But I think the point is that the Hierophant is how people used to do it, and then Chariot is kind of how it's sort of done now, or should be done now. Spirituality is so much more a private thing nowadays compared to what it was before. It was so politicized and all that stuff. So it's the internal versus the external religion in a way.
And the High Priestess?
And the High Priestess, I think it's... High Priestess is more direct. It's more just having that blast of intuition into you, where this is kind of more... If I were to give an analogy, the Chariot is kind of you preparing yourself in the right state of mind in order to receive it. The Priestess is like you receiving that high concentration of dosage of divine that you're so dazzled and like almost like woo, and dazed by it, kind of thing. Yeah.
The Priestess in this deck is very sexy.
Oh.
Which one?
She's only partial.
Can we have a gander?
Okay.
Oh.
Well, okay, that's all from me.
There she is.
Oh, okay. That's all from me. I'm going to stop the video now. So thank you very much for coming. I hope that was enjoyable.
Thank you.